Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the Selling Fort Collins podcast. I'm here with Mark Driscoll, the owner of Mountain Time Vacation Rentals. Very excited about today's show. And, I'm going to start off today talking a little bit more than I usually do. I want to talk about how I met you, and that will lead into what you do. And then we're going to talk more about your background and how you got to where you are today. But for those of you who have not heard of Mountain Time Vacation Rentals, you can check them out online. They are the largest manager of short-term rentals, oftentimes referred to as Airbnbs, in the Fort Collins area, really in northern Colorado. But let's talk quick about how we met. I want to go back to 2017. I remember the city came out with their map on where you could have short-term rentals.
Sure.
And there are these different levels, right? There was the green and the yellow. It was, hey, if you're in the green zone, you can have a short-term rental so long as you live there, an owner-occupied short-term rental. If you're in the yellow, and there wasn't very much yellow on the map, but if you're in the yellow, you could have a non-owner-occupied short-term rental map. And I remember overlaying their map with an aerial of the city of Fort Collins. And the first thought that came to my mind was in the yellow zone where you can have a non-owner occupied short-term rental. There weren't very many houses at all. It was commercial areas.
Low competition. Yeah. Not a lot of competition.
Not a lot of residential areas where you could do this. However, it just so happened that a property that I owned with partners, total of 6 units, 3 duplexes that were all side by side on one taxable lot adjacent to UC Health, the hospital system in town here. That was in the yellow. And I called my partners and I said, the city just did this thing. And, you can have a non-owner occupied short-term rental there. They didn't really know what that meant. We had other rental properties together. They were familiar with that concept. Yeah, it's vacant. We get a tenant, we get rent. This is a little different, obviously. We have to get furniture. Well, not just furniture, right? Silverware, toiletries.
Yeah, I remember that day. All the consumables were being dropped off, and all the furniture was getting delivered. And I think it was, for your other partners, that was kind of like a big eye opener. There's a little bit. It's not like you just sign a 1-year lease and then move a tenant in. You got to get it staged and ready. So yeah,
and they were writing checks.
Yeah.
They were writing.
It's great. Those are the best partners.
They were writing big checks because it was we had to get the designer in, and we had to get the furniture in, the TVs, all of these things that he said. But what I remember distinctly about this process was that you were incredible to work with. I
appreciate that. Yeah.
You took me through it step by step. You connected me to the right people, and we got these things dialed in. And just to skip to there was lots that happened there, but it ended up being the best investment of my life. These partners who were very well-established investors, I think probably the best investment of their lives.
Yeah, Garfield did really well. The numbers were, I was kind of, wondering what that kind of block would do. And it turns out it was so good that I think the next investor that bought the building, they just kept doing it. Same model. So
it worked out incredibly well. And that just, so we got to know each other through that process. Mountain Time Vacation Rentals, I think, started maybe around that time, a little bit before that time, and has clearly grown exponentially since that time.
Yeah, you were early days. Yeah, you started right around 2016. So
yeah,
business about 10 years.
Yeah, and take us back. I was so impressed with you from the very start because you were just such an operations guy. You were so dialed in. You were so organized. You had all the connections. The blueprint was in place, and it's not just anybody can do this. A lot of people try, but I know you have an impressive background. So, maybe if you wouldn't mind, Mark, let's just start by telling us a little bit about your background. Where you maybe kind of where you grew up and how you got started in business.
Yeah, for sure. First of all, thanks for having me on the podcast. I'm happy to be here. I love talking vacation rentals, short-term rentals. Again, thank you for that.
Of course.
Yeah, I started renting out rooms in 1998 when I saw that I couldn't afford my mortgage. I had just moved out of college. I bought a house that was way too big for me because it was a whole neighborhood that was getting built out in Arizona. And I got these big eyes and I said, oh, well, I want to get one of these new big ones because, the price point, I think at that point in time, I paid $125,000 for the house. It was 1998, brand new 4-bedroom house. But I was only making maybe $40,000 a year as an engineer at Intel. And very quickly I learned in order to afford this mortgage, I need additional income. And that's when I started putting up ads. I started renting out rooms. It worked well. I got my next property. And from then forward, we were buying a couple properties a month. I met my wife out in Arizona.
What part of Arizona?
It was Chandler, Arizona. So East Valley, for those familiar with Arizona. And we just invested in the East Valley. We kind of pulled together that corporate income and started renting property out there, either by the bedroom, furnished or non-furnished. Meanwhile, my day job was a mechanical engineer at Intel. And at Intel, it's a challenging company to work for, but one thing that they got going for them is just incredible process and redundancies. They do a phenomenal job documenting their processes. And I learned a lot there. I got to work on $100 million projects plus, leading big teams. And I say half my career at Intel, the first 10 years, I was there for 20 years. My first 10 years was as an engineer, but my second 10 years is where I really got deep into real estate. I managed a lot of their commercial properties, not the wafer fabs, but the design centers that they have in the Midwest. And so I managed those, including the facility manager for the one here in Fort Collins.
What did that entail? What's it like managing a large facility like that? I mean, lots of details. I'm just envisioning a large, commercial facility, but what kinds of things were you dealing with?
Yeah, I mean, and by Intel's standards, they consider these small facilities. They have 500 people, 250,000 square feet each.
But they consider that a small facility.
That's a very small facility. In fact, I think when I met with a few people, with city staff, they thought this might be one of Intel's headquarters. And that's where I started in Chandler. Was one of their large wafer fabs, their development plants, and they either have a wafer plant or assembly test. And those are millions of square feet and range from $2 to $5 billion. Whereas, a design center might be in the 100 million range. So a little bit different, but challenges. Yeah. I mean, a lot of equipment. So building management. So think about, air handling units the size of semis, and you have, several dozens of those. You got to log all your refrigerant hours, how much or refrigerant usage pounds, if you have to replace refrigerant. There's a number of compliance items with the state that you have to be in compliance with. We had one of the largest backup battery banks in the state of Colorado. And I was even lucky enough to build, or manage one of the solar installations, one of the largest in Colorado. When you drive along Harmony, you'll see the carport that goes over the parking lot in front of Intel. That was one of our projects. All of that's covered solar, and that supplements the energy that comes into the building that powers the data center.
So lots of moving parts, lots of big responsibilities, lots of, if you mess up here or there, it's expensive.
Yeah.
So preparing you for the future, maybe without even knowing that it was preparing you for what you're going to be doing in the future.
Yeah, for sure. And in 2017, they looked at me and they said, you can either move back to one of our larger, they were kind of bringing people back to the major hubs. And they gave me that offer. You can come back to Arizona or back to Oregon. And by that time, my wife and I had 2 kids at Poudre Valley Hospital. We fell in love with Fort Collins. We had a community here. And really at that point, I was really just looking for a way to stay in the community. And I did about a year worth of soul searching, right around that 2015, 2016, period. It was difficult. I bled blue. I only knew Intel. I, had some just amazing projects and memories there. But eventually what came out of that, soul searching was I love technology. I love software, and I love real estate. And together, I saw this emerging market, this industry of peer-to-peer housing, peer-to-peer lodging, shared. When you're not at your house, what can you do with that? It's probably the most expensive asset that you have. It is one of the most expensive assets that you have. And this thing called Airbnb, VRBO was really taking off. And I looked at it and I said, well, what if we took one of our rental properties and we put it on the platform? I don't know, we're not Vail, we're not Steamboat, we're Fort Collins, but is there an interest here? And sure enough, we put it on the market and it took off. And what I noticed was we have enough hubs and people relocating, and the growth of Fort Collins and growth of Northern Colorado, CSU, the tech corridor along Harmony, that there's a base of business. There's this core group of travelers coming to the area. Now, are they coming here to snow ski? Probably not. That's 2 hours away, but they love the trails. They love the mountain biking. They're alumni. They're working for the big tech companies. And so that became our customer. And then we did another one, and then same story repeated itself. We just kept growing it to about 10. And that's about the time when other investors and owners of rental properties said, hey, it seems like you got some great software process. Would you mind managing mine? And that's where Mountain Time was born, right around 2016.
That's where it was launched.
That was launched.
So the seed of it starting was you taking this time to do this soul searching, and it was. It sounds like it was like, how can I stay in Fort Collins with my family?
Yeah.
How can I do something here? And I think that's something that we hear a lot here, just as kind of I guess as a fellow entrepreneur. That is why I'm here. I think we have mutual friends that would tell that same story, other options, lots of different things they could do, companies they could work for, but they wanted to find a way to stay here. And it's interesting to hear that. And I, just to expand on that a little bit, you had 2 kids at the time, young kids. What were some of the things that sparked that? Like, why Fort Collins? Because, like we just said, you could have gone anywhere. What made you want to stay here? I mean, to a point where you had an amazing career out, just rolled out in front of you by Intel, and you decided to start your own thing so you could stay here, so you could be here, so you could raise your family here. But what are some of the things about Fort Collins that, like what was it?
I mean, definitely still that small town feel. I'm constantly running into people that, were like, one person separated, friends, family. It didn't take much to get a lot of our family, my wife's family, to relocate to Fort Collins. They would visit and, see the same things that we love doing. My wife and I are avid mountain bikers. My wife volunteers for maintaining the trails with Larimer County. And it's just a great place to recreate. I love the reservoir. We just got a boat this last year, and I'd love taking the kids out there. It's super fun. And clients. So yeah, if the clients are listening, we'll get them out there.
And listeners, that's Horsetooth Reservoir.
Horsetooth, yeah.
A 6-mile-long reservoir on the west side of Fort Collins. An amazing place.
Yeah.
Border, you got Lowry State Park up there. You have Horsetooth Park. Yeah. Number of hiking trails. Amazing place to go boating.
Yeah, I got to pinch myself. We live off Wood Street, and a lot of times, on the weekends, my wife will go off. The 2 of us will go off on a mountain bike ride, and the fact that we can just leave out our back door and be on a trail system that is absolutely gorgeous, overlooking this amazing body of water called Horsetooth Reservoir. You literally, every time I get up there at Shoreline Trail, I'm just pinching myself. I'm like, I can't believe that we live here. It's such an amazing place.
You just cruise right down Wood Street, right through Boteros Creek, where I believe your father-in-law lives.
Yep,
and
that's where they
hop on the Poudre Trail and
just cruise on. Yeah, cruise west.
Such a good location.
Yeah,
awesome.
We've really enjoyed it.
Well, that's great, and I think so. The nature, just the small town feel, people. I mean, what's a perfect day in Fort Collins look like for you and your family when you're not working right now?
Oh, perfect day. Yeah. Maybe like bike and boat. I don't know, like get a bike ride in. Our kids are starting to get into biking quite a bit. They're on the trails with us. And then, like this week, it's going to be 95 degrees. I saw a statistic. We have more sunny days than San Diego and Fort Collins. That was one of the things that attracted us to the area. We wanted someplace sunny.
What are we at? We're at about 300 sunny days here in Fort Collins. Is that right?
Yeah.
That's more than San Diego.
More than San Diego, I believe. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. That's awesome. One more. Great.
But it's not something you think about, right? Living in Colorado, kind of think of snow and clouds. And so, yeah, we love it, especially this week, 95 degrees. It's fun to recreate, but it's also, great to cool off and, have these bodies of water around. Even the Poudre River, our whole team is getting ready to do a team builder. We're going to go through one of the outfitters that take you down the Poudre River and do, I think, a class 3 or 4 whitewater down there in the raft.
Wow.
Yeah. So looking forward to that.
Yeah, the rafting excursions. On the show a lot, we talk about people who listen to this are oftentimes they're interested in Fort Collins, interested in visiting. A lot of times they're interested in visiting for an extended period of time because they see this as a place where they can move to. Yeah. And that is another thing, everybody, to look at the whitewater rafting excursions. There are, I believe, 3 different companies that do those. And, just Google whitewater rafting Fort Collins. These places are just right on the edge of town. You go in there, they have you all set up. They bus you up the Poudre Canyon. It's an amazing time, different levels, depending on where they get in. They go the lower portion of the river, the upper portion of the river. You can have a really, depending on the time of year too, you can have a, really intense experience or, something that's a little bit more family friendly if you have some younger kids. So it's a great one. That's a really great one. No one's brought that up yet.
No, yeah. And, these are the things that are attracting people to the area. That's what's keeping us busy and growing. It's not hard to get people out here. We have great builders, great homes, lots of activities. There's many reasons to come. Lots of alumni coming for the the fact that they got the stadium on campus. Was a huge impact to us. I mean, it was great to have them, and they're looking for housing, right? They want to come in, enjoy the games. A lot of folks relocating to the area, looking for, housing for, let's say, 3 weeks while they work with a realtor to find their next place. And we can be a great option for that. Sometimes we're not a great option. Sometimes we refer, we'll refer guests to the Elizabeths. They say the Elizabeth, when you come with your family again, or 2 families, we might be a great option. If you're looking for a kitchen, patio, rooftop patio, fireplace, bunch of amenities, bikes, all that's where I think we come in as a solution, like an accommodation solution.
Yeah, I think so for sure. And yeah, the Elizabeth, the hotel in the heart of Old Town Fort Collins is amazing. But, if you want to get some groceries, if you want to cook, maybe if you're traveling with a few dogs, you want some space. Maybe you want to do a load of laundry and all your units have laundry. You can do those things in your rentals. And, I want to get into, we're going to talk a little bit more about some of the stats, but let's talk more about your company, your business. Back when we started working together, 2017, you were kind of just getting rolling. You had some properties. I was one of the early clients. I remember going over to your office. It was like a few people.
Yeah.
But so let's talk about what's the company size now, and how many properties do you?
Yeah, and you saw office number, I think 2 or 3. It's truly a basement business. I just wanted to have like super low overhead for the first 3 or 4 years. So it was interesting. I went from an office space at Intel with 500 people around me, surrounded by cubicles and a Starbucks and a fitness center and a dedicated fitness instructor. And, they had their own amenities. I think that's where I learned the amenity game. Airbnb's got to, VRBO's got to have amenities. And we got a nice budget to treat the employees. So I took that with me. But it started off in our basement, unfinished basement. And I had my wife would help me on the side with tasks, with bookkeeping and accounting. And I was just out hustling, really trying to grow the business. I saw opportunity in it. And I saw a need that was missing. There was more demand than we had supply, mainly due to the fact that, there is regulation, but the regulation for us is good. It's a good thing. We don't want as, residents of Fort Collins to have neighborhoods get filled up with short-term rentals. There's a place and time for them, and there's a guest, and I think that guest screening process is so important. But the fact that there is regulation is a great thing. But navigating that, finding the right clients with the houses in those areas, it took a little bit of digging. It took some work. After about 4 years, I moved into a shared workspace. I think that's where you and I met. Hired my first administrative assistant. And then very shortly after that, a marketing person and some operational handyman, cleaners. Started to bring cleaning in-house because, as we scaled, cleaning became very important with reviews. You have to have 5-star reviews. Or the property just won't book. And so the reviews became very important. And I started to learn the business of short-term rental management, which is very different from long-term rental management. You're talking about long-term management. You're signing a lease for 12 months. Short-term rental management, we're signing a rental agreement every 3 to 5 days. And we have, we host 8,000 groups of people. Every group's about six people per group every year. So it's just a lot of folks coming in.
8,000 visitors.
8,000 groups.
8,000 groups.
Yeah. So eight times 6. That's how many people we're hosting to the area.
Wow.
I brought a couple statistics, which I thought was kind of interesting.
Yeah.
In 2022, travelers in Colorado contributed $27.7 billion to the state's economy. That generated $1.7 billion in local and state revenues. The average guest that we had spent $1,100 during their trip to Fort Collins. And like I mentioned,
you know what they spend it on? I mean, I'm assuming just going out to restaurants in Old Town.
Yep. Yeah. Restaurants, going around Old Town, whitewater trips, boat rentals at Inlet Bay Marina. So that's on average. So some groups are spending more, some are less. But just the folks we're bringing in, 8.8 million roughly in spending in Fort Collins, side spending. So it can have a pretty positive economic impact. And we're excited about that, obviously.
Well, I mean, that's huge. And what's fascinating to me too, and you alluded to it earlier, you have these different types of groups that, will come and rent a short-term rental through Mountain Time Vacation Rentals for, maybe it's a few days, maybe it's a week, 2 weeks. I mean, there's probably a spectrum there. I know it's short-term is defined as less than 30 days, right? Yeah. So these people are staying for a relatively short amount of time. They're turning over quickly. You're seeing a lot of different guests. And one thing at my short-term rental, I think like you, wondering, is this going to work? It wasn't right in Old Town. It was, further east next to the hospital. And I was, the guests, it was just such a wide variety. It was, mom and dad who were maybe, their daughter was having a baby at UC Health at the hospital, or maybe it was somebody visiting a loved one who was sick, getting treatment for something in the hospital. And that was, when there were people that were just wanting to go to Old Town and they didn't mind using one of the cruiser bikes and going quite a ways on a cruiser bike, which we provided because you coached us on all of this. And, other people that were here for, Woodward Governor, one of our large employers in town, or just name it. I mean, there are so many. I actually kept notes on which companies, and Microsoft's in town. A lot of people don't even know Microsoft is a large employer in Fort Collins. They are. We had Microsoft people. We had Intel people. We had HP people. We had AMD, Broadcom. We had, CSU professors. We had people visiting, patent attorneys visiting to spend time at the OtterBox headquarters in Old Town. We had this, such a wide variety. And I think that's one thing that's fascinating about short-term rentals in Fort Collins. It's that, if you own one in, let's say, Nashville, Tennessee, like who is your guest? It's off a bachelor party, a bachelorette party. Yeah, I know there's a professional scene there too, but it's kind of like you're really hard on one segment there. And in Fort Collins, it's totally diversified.
Definitely the outlier. Yeah. A lot. I mean, there's definitely been, I think, a negative connotation because, we only get the headlines, right? We get the negative news sells. Everyone knows that. And you get the reports, California or big tourist area, there's an Airbnb party. That's like the 1% of the 1% of what we see. 99% of our guests plus are a joy to work with. They're on vacation or they're scouting the area, trying to figure out if Fort Collins is going to be a good fit for them and their family. But I think the headlines that you see some of the times, we don't see that. And we have a lot of the data. We have a big block of data. We track it carefully. We track reviews carefully, and we're just not seeing those patterns. And I think it's for those reasons that you mentioned. It's just you're not coming. It's not a ski resort, right? Like this is not a ski resort. It's business professionals and folks looking for a home.
And I think as the local economy here is continue to become more and more diversified. You look at our tech sector, how that's taken off. The university, the largest public university in the state by far now, Colorado State University. The healthcare sector, right? We have this.
I heard Colorado State's bigger. I thought I read they're bigger than Boulder now.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, they have been for a while.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we're by far.
I told that to someone going to Boulder first. Third year student, and she was like, no, it's impossible. I think CSU is now larger. So
she can just get out her smartphone, do a quick search. Yeah. It's not even close anymore. Yeah. We are the largest university in the state. So, and you look at all these this growth happening at CSU with all these different sectors now. It's amazing. We're really kind of becoming this place that is much different than it was 5-10 years ago, which, also makes me, I wonder if you have some unique insight or if you have some unique maybe opinions on, where things are going here, because you've seen a lot, real estate really well, and you're just seeing the guest profiles. You're seeing the type of people that are coming here, that are drawn here. One trend I would point out that we haven't pointed out yet is, with this kind of robust local economy, more higher paying jobs, attracting younger people, younger professionals. Well, guess who else that attracts? It attracts mom and dad, because, there is there isn't one thing that I can think of, at least, that attracts parents of these young professionals like grandkids. So they just want to be close to their family, and this also attracts kind of healthy people that like the outdoors and everything. And increasingly, I think people that are of retirement age want to be in this kind of vibrant atmosphere. So that's something that I'm seeing. I'm wondering if you have any thoughts on the future of Fort Collins real estate here, based on the types of, guests that you're seeing and the people you're interacting with every day.
Yeah. I mean, again, I love data. I follow a lot of different, industry newsletters. They talk a lot about our region for travel, tourism, the industry, hospitality. And I'm so bullish on this area in terms of investing more, raising my salaries. We have 18 employees, pushing those up higher, because what I see is what happened after COVID. Folks are sitting at their houses. They're going, life is short. We have one life. They're in a megatropolis in New York or LA or Phoenix, and they're going, we need more open space. We want more trails. We want more access to open spaces and communities that care about open spaces. And we saw an influx of folks migrate after the pandemic. Obviously, that benefited us, but it was really cool to see people adjusting their priorities. It was really cool to see employers adjust their policies to say, if we want talent, if we want the best and brightest for our companies, we're going to have to ease up a little bit on where and how we tell people to work. And so, I know that we've had to do that, in order for me to recruit the best and brightest reservation agents. Sometimes I don't have like a seasoned, sales reservation agent at my doorstep. And so we look at those markets where they get that, it might be a bigger industry in a different market, and we leverage that. So that's what we saw after the pandemic. A lot of migration to Colorado communities, and the reasons are for what we've been talking about the last half hour.
Yeah, you're just seeing more and more of that, and I think that equates to more people wanting to move here and be here. And if you're listening and you want to learn more about the company, I think I said the website once already, but mountaintimevacationrentals.com. I hope people listen to this and they're like, I really want to check out Fort Collins, and maybe even more than they already do. Check out the website, mountaintimevacationrentals.com. Your website's amazing. by the way.
Yeah. We just rolled out a new version of it. So definitely check it out. It was really cool. We work with a company that specializes in vacation rental websites. And so, they knocked it out of the park on this one. We have 120 homes listed on the site. And they're gorgeous. We're pretty selective with who we take on. My whole goal is to build a select group of niche luxury properties that are professionally staged, where folks know they're going to get a consistent experience. That's really what's missing in the industry right now is, I hear these horror stories. I showed up to this property, grandma's upstairs and she's walking around in her robe, and we're using the bedroom, to the right on the back of the house, and she's walking around at night. And I'm like, I didn't even, I'm like, wow, people are still doing that. And that it couldn't be a further cry from what we do. You get the entire property. It's going to be professionally staged. They're going to get you're not going to bring any consumables. It's going to be stocked there for you. And it's going to look the same every time, with the exception of the amenities. We try to brand each and every property just a little bit different, depending on what you want. If you have kids, we have one property where we're talking about putting together this whole treasure hunt game. And so you come in and there's a box with clues, and you walk around and you do this treasure hunt with the kids. And so that's super important. Folks are looking to stay in something similar in caliber to what they live in currently, but they also want to step into our shoes, so step in the community shoes, be close to the coffee house down the street. And that's really what we're selling. We have an amazing facility that we picked up about 3 years ago. It's a 5,000 square foot facility with state-of-the-art laundry facility attached to it. And
I got the tour. I remember
you got the tour. Yeah.
You gave me the tour. If you remember, it was a little while back now, but these huge, and I think this is an important thing to touch on, because I am a germaphobe, and I need things to be a certain way when I'm staying somewhere. And so, we've all stayed at places that maybe don't meet your expectations. And seeing your laundry facility, this is a commercial laundry. I mean, huge machines bolted to the ground that are doing that. It's done in a very professional way. Sometimes when people think about a short-term rental stay, like, who's doing the laundry? Where's that? Everything there is being done in this uniform. Your experience at Intel shines through, I think, here, and you just understand facility. You understand what needs to be done at scale, and so. Well,
especially for the things that are the most important. If it's critical to the guest experience or to the homeowner, we got to nail it. We have to get it right. Not everything, but there's some things we have to get right. Housekeeping, cleanliness, sanitization of linens, like that's stuff that we have to nail. We have to get it right every time.
My duplexes, I remember, I think they were built in 1960. And, the insulation in between the walls, it wasn't great. Not anything that you can really do about that. But I do know we had great reviews and everything. One person I think one time mentioned that, they could hear the neighbor, which, again, these things happen. And I remember, I think it was like the day after I went into the unit, and you had ear plugs. Like the little foam ones, like as an additional amenity next to like the mints, which were already there. And I thought that was really cool. So, just big kudos on that. That was neat. And now a question I have for you also is, you go to your website, you can see the reviews. People enjoy the properties, of course. It's everything is done exceptionally well. I wonder if what feedback did you get, if any, from the guests on like what did they enjoy most about their trip for Collins? Did they talk about what they did, experiences, specific places, and any of those that stick out to you?
Yeah, for sure. A lot of feedback in both the reviews and verbal, comments back to us are just that we appreciate that you didn't just try to sell us a home or, to rent, that you really have like a concierge arm of your service. So you rent a Mountain Time home, you get access to our concierge service where we'll put together a custom day for you. We'll even put it in the welcome guest book, recommendations on what the perfect day or two might look like touring around Fort Collins. And I might be starting at one of our amazing breweries, biking down the Poudre River, having dinner downtown, but making sure that whatever we're recommending, whatever business we're partnering with, that they're going to be here for the long term. We don't want to change the guest books every time, but also that it's just an amazing experience. So they really appreciate that. Certainly the feedback is what you would think. They came to town. I mean, we have folks that come to town. They don't even know that Horsetooth Reservoir is back there. They didn't realize they might be here for work and didn't realize they could have gone to a CSU football game. So we're trying to send out regular communication via text, email, phone calls, keeping them in the loop. Spend money in Fort Collins. Here's some great ways to have a great experience. Like, they want to spend money. People are coming to Fort Collins. They want to spend money. They just need a little direction. Just like if you and I were to show up in downtown New York and say, okay, where's the best place to grab a slice of pizza? It's like, well, I'm sure there's some places to avoid. I just want to be aware of that so I can make it to the good one.
Right. Yeah. And I think it's interesting. You get all these feedback. You have these great recommendations for people. I'd be curious to go through right now and kind of like, let's do what are the spots? What your favorite breweries? Top. I'm going to start just giving you just some, rapid fire. Sure. Top 2 or 3 breweries.
Oh man. I mean, obviously New Belgium with the new yard. I mean, I feel bad because they had that big open grassy area and they had to go to the artificial turf, but at least they did a real high quality one.
It was a good call.
Yeah, it was a good call because real turf and lots of people don't go hand in hand.
Sean Belangi, if you're listening, Sean was just on this podcast.
Okay.
And so New Belgium's the number 1 recommendation. That's great.
Yeah. I mean, side by side, Odell's another just amazing patio area.
Sure.
With the winery next door. So do you want beer? Do you want wine? They got 2 different options. There's Funkworks, a little bit off the beaten path. I love what they're doing. Equinox, another kind of off the beaten path, but again, just some amazing craft beers. Restaurants, I mean, look at what just opened up on College for sushi. It's like, my God, you're going to...
Japango,
yes. Yeah, we just had dinner there, and what a 5-star experience. I mean, it's 20 years ago when I moved here, 22 years ago, there were pawn shops up and down College. I don't know if you remember the pawn shops.
Yep.
And now we got like these world-class restaurants.
Well, across from the pawn shop, the biggest pawn shop in Old Town was right across the street from where we're at now. You remember that? That's where Easy Pawn was.
The old one.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
And I mean, this block here, the Exchange is a great example.
That's right.
Now it's restaurants. It's containers that are built out as restaurants. It's this huge, butter churn that they're serving ice cream from.
They kind of took these models. I mean, you'll see some of these models down in Denver, but the execution can be hit or miss. I have to say, like, me and my family, we're down at the Exchange like once a week, right? Like, we're getting some burritos or a drink or going to the Copper Muse Distillery. Other great restaurants. I mean, Little is such like a test concept off of Shields. And then the Little restaurant, that it's named Little because it's so tiny. I mean, they've kept having to expand. And then now they've taken over this huge space right off of College. So love seeing these business owners and restaurateurs in this space be creative, take risks, not be safe, and succeed. And that's what these stories are all about, I think.
Well, it's fascinating too when you talk to these restaurateurs, the people behind these amazing concepts like Little, and the same owners opened Avery at College and Mountain Avenue.
Okay, yeah,
and others too. I mean, I could go down the list here, but there's a similar thread, and it's similar to your story, Mark, in that they wanted to be here in Fort Collins.
Yeah,
they could have gone anywhere.
They
had endless opportunities. Yeah. Really impressive backgrounds, extremely talented people, but they wanted to find a way to be here. So they brought their dream, they made it happen. And then when you combine this with, the the buildings, the history, the architecture that we have in this old town area. It creates something magical. It's why we are one of the top downtowns in the entire country. It's why recently the USA Today had that poll, what the best town squares, something of that nature. Yeah. And there's some really famous, some really well-known town squares across the country. And number 4 in the entire country, I think it caught a lot of people by surprise, because Fort Collins surprisingly still isn't on as many people's radar, but to see Old Town Square in Fort Collins is number 4 in the entire country on that poll. So that was cool.
I love it. I mean, the downtown area, and so I was born and raised in Orlando, Florida, and obviously my family took us to Disney. Not often, but enough. We got our fill of Disney because it was in our backyard. But it was so cool when I moved here to hear that story about how Walt, his partner, visited Fort Collins. And it's from going down the main streets and seeing the architecture that he designed Main Street of Disney World in Orlando. That's the
he designed
it
off of Walnut Avenue,
yeah.
which we can see from here. His name's Harper Goff. Yep. And, I was involved with the Exchange project here, and we named that's Harper Goff, alley, kind of leading into the Exchange on the other side, paying tribute to Harper Goff. And if you are on Pine Street looking at the Exchange project from that angle, you'll see a painting rendering of Harper Goff up on the wall.
I didn't realize that. Okay.
So that's cool. He was the guy.
Love that
and
story.
That's why Main Street in Disney looks the way it does, because of Old Town, specifically Walnut Street here in Old Town.
I took my kids not long ago, and we're going down Main Street in Orlando, at Disney World, and they're like, God, Daddy, it looks so similar to where we live. And I'm like, well, there's a reason for that. But yeah, super cool downtown. I got to mention Austin's too, if we're talking restaurants.
Good call.
It's such a staple. Has everything, but they're so consistent. I love their staff. Just another really well-run restaurant. So yeah, those are kind of my top picks.
Yeah, you can kind of go down. There's others.
You just keep going.
The Rio jumps out at me. I mean, the Rio is kind of another one of those. It's very Fort Collins.
Yeah.
I think, Rare Italian. I love Jack's. I mean, I like the Penrose across the street. I mean, these so many local operators, so many impressive people kind of creating this special vibe here.
Yeah, we're getting kind of a foodie scene here, which is really cool to see. We didn't have that before. And it's only happened in the last 5 years, I feel like, where it's really starting to take off. So, that's obviously helpful for us. We host people that are coming to stay. When we have great restaurants and businesses in the area, it's just that much easier to sell. So.
And, it's interesting to me too that everyone talks about Old Town, and rightfully so. You're the first person in this platform that has brought up the reservoir, at least in greater detail. And that's something I think that's going to get activated more and more. Recently, I worked with the head rowing instructor at West Point Academy. Yeah. She just retired last month, purchased a home here in town with her husband, and looking forward to she's going to get out on Horsetooth Reservoir. She's just excited to row that 6 mile long reservoir. I think that's something we're going to see activated more and more. I mean, not just like the boating scene in the summer is amazing. You have your boat now. Were you able to get a slip out there?
They're very difficult.
They're very difficult to get. I know you have some connections.
I put my name in the hat like 15 years ago. And then
is that what the waiting list is now?
Well, they say they don't have one anymore.
Okay.
They don't have one, but I put my name in the hat like 15 years ago, and I would go almost every weekend, and I would just rent a boat with me and my kids and say, hey, where are we on the list? And we did that.
I thought you were going to say you went almost every weekend to check and see if you over 15 years. That's real dedication.
Yeah. Well, no, that is what I mean. I mean, we were going quite a bit, but it was literally 15 years when I put our name in. And we just got, like, in the last year,
you got it.
Yeah. So it's great.
Congrats.
Yeah. Thanks.
Congrats.
That's like one of the things I'm most proud of.
Oh, I mean, yeah, this summer, I'm sure you're going to be getting out there with your family, having an amazing time.
I'm not getting any younger. The idea of like towing a boat over there is a lot of work. So it's nice to just kind of show up, friends and family, and business, just get them out on the boat. It's when you're on the water, it's such a different perspective than like driving around the reservoir. It's they've got I think four or five separate private coves that you can go into. And when you're in these coves, you might as well be in like New Zealand. I mean, it's green and there's, mountain bikers, biking by, and deer running around. Again, it's like one of these pinch me moments. Like, I cannot believe I live here.
Yeah. There's a lot of people. We spending time with somebody yesterday, and we were just, we talk a lot frequently here. I think it doesn't go unnoticed that we were able to have these experiences, these moments. And, I mean, what a neat thing to have built a business here like you have. And I know there's a super bright future for Mountain Time Vacation Rentals, and just curious, what's next for the company. There's been huge growth. Since 2016, here we are in 2024. What are you excited about going forward?
Yeah, the last 10 years, I've really just kind of spent time, energy, effort, just focusing on the people, the processes, and the facility. And, we're at a point now where we're ready for growth. We want to do it responsibly. We want to stay very connected to our community, to our city officials. We operate currently in 7 different cities. And not every one of those cities has enacted their short-term rental regulations. Fort Collins, as we know, has always been, I think, ahead of the curve, looking at these issues early and often. And they solved it back in 2017. They put out what I think is a very fair short-term rental regulation policy. And other cities are now looking at the city of Fort Collins as a way to model it in a responsible way. Right.
How did Fort Collins get there? I mean, I've never really looked into this, but Fort Collins had to have done a lot of research on other areas, best practices.
For sure they did. Yeah. I mean, I got to applaud the city and the staff at that time. And even now they did a lot of research, where is this model working well? Obviously it's controversial. I mean, the thing for me is, the business itself is no different than, property management and rental homes. It is a rental home. The only difference, I sometimes I don't even like to use the word STR. People have gravitated to the word STR, but when you think about it, the only thing that means, or the way it's been defined, is if somebody is staying in a home and renting it for, more than 30 days, it is no longer an STR. It somehow becomes a long-term rental. But then when you rent it for less than 30 days, it is now a short-term rental, and it comes with, additional taxes, regulation. And I get it, right? Like they're more transient in nature. But as far as the impact on the property, the house, like I said, 99% of our guests are just absolutely phenomenal. They're just like any other renter. In some cases, they're a lot better than that 12-month renter that keeps leaving their trash cans out on the curb, not pulling it in, not caring about the property. The homes aren't getting maintained in many cases in these long-term rental relationships. And the neighbors are fed up with it. And that's with a 12-month lease, right? And so with what we're seeing, the demographic we see is they're coming, they're enjoying, they're talking to the neighbors. People say, oh, you're losing community. It's like we have neighbors next to our short-term rentals that are bringing wine over to our guests. I kid you not. Like there's stories of this happening because in a 7 to 10 day stay, they've developed this friendship. They're like, hey, we're thinking about this area. What can you tell? And that, to me, that is also community. Community doesn't just exist for folks that live here. It's folks that might even be considering moving here. That's being, I think, a responsible community, a loving community. And, we see that as well. So
that's really cool to hear that story. And I could see that. I know with my experience, the 6 units over the years, those were turning over, all the time, 6 different units. We had zero problems. I mean, and people, I think as awareness is kind of continues to be raised in this sector, people understand more that, look, these properties, they're they're professionally maintained by very experienced managers like you. The outdoor landscaping, is being taken care of. The grass is getting cut. It's getting watered. These properties need to look immaculate.
You have to
attract the guests.
Yeah. Or they'll leave a bad review and,
Right.
they won't get rented.
So for your neighborhood, if there is one in close proximity to your house, I don't understand an argument that there could really be any better use, just from a standpoint of, we've all had, I've had properties, you have too, with long-term tenants. What happens with those? Deferred maintenance happens. The grass doesn't maybe get watered or mowed, and the property doesn't look the same in a lot of cases. And quite frankly, even if that property is owned by somebody and, it can't judge because, maybe that person has a newborn baby and 17 different things going on that day, but maybe the grass isn't getting mowed. Maybe these things are happening. Where they're always happening though is at one of your short-term rentals. You drive by, the exterior looks immaculate all the time. So that's what people are starting to learn and understand about this. And I think it's just going to continue to benefit your business. And it's been fun to see it grow.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Yeah, thanks so much.
And I'm just excited to see what happens. Of course, man. Yeah, I want to be a client more in the future, and I've of course referred people to you. I will continue to refer people to you. I can't imagine this is what I tell people. Like, I cannot imagine a better property manager. I cannot imagine it being done at a higher level. So,
well, it's less. I have to say one thing is far less about me these days. With 18 other people, we have some really talented folks. Casey is my chief of operations, just a phenomenal lady. She runs housekeeping and maintenance. I have Jim running our maintenance program. I have Randy's in sales, and he leads our reservation team. Michaela's head of marketing. And these guys, these are the best and the brightest. And I think if you want to build a great company that people really appreciate using those goods or services, it starts with the people that you hire. If you don't hire talent, if you don't take care of them, the business is always going to suffer. And what I think the success that we've seen is less about me and more about, I think my best skill set is just identifying good people that are smarter than me, better than me, in whatever area of the business it might be. So. Yeah.
A lot of times when I ask that question too, what does the future look like? You hear a lot about growth and metrics and goals and these things. What I hear from you is we're tripling down on, ensuring the highest quality experience of the guest. And that starts with our people. That starts with hiring the very best people. And that's what you're really tripling down on. And everything else is going to take care of itself once that's really attended to the way you're attending to it. So congrats, thank you for doing this. You have a lot of things on your calendar. You're a busy guy, and just taking the time means a lot to me. I think everyone got a lot out of this. Again, I hope everyone goes to mountaintimevacationrentals.com to check out your new website. I hope you'll make it to Fort Collins. And, again, if you are purchasing a short-term rental property, maybe there will be a different name around these. We're all calling them STRs now, but a property that's going to be leased for 30 days or less.
Furnished, yeah.
Fully furnished. Mark's your guy. Yeah. You'll find all the contact on the website. And Mark, thank you again for your time.
Yeah.